Yeah. See, now people like to talk, I don't really like to hear them. See these dudes snaking, that's why I don't get near them. This rapper's in my blood, I don't even need that serum. Hometown kids, so you hear the city cheering. Lately I've been going off. Think I'm killing now, man, just wait till this my job. I'm trying to PC sauce.
Well, we will get started then. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Patrick Odell. I do operations management for the African continent for Children's International Rescue Foundation. I also do some operations for them that involve gathering intelligence for child rescue.
Okay.
I'm Mallory Heinberger, and well, I've been on your show before, but I am Patrick Odell's evangelist. I just evangelize him everywhere I go.
You're the religious right hand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. How'd you get started doing this?
Well, I work in the defense industry, so I have agreements with Department of Defense to teach intelligence officers, and I work with several law enforcement bodies and individuals that either do corrections, patrol, also military professionals as well. I teach edged weapon combat and hand-to-hand combat. So I was actually working with a couple of different organizations that train people to recover children that are missing domestically, and they just needed more operators. There's always a shortage of people that have integrity, that are willing to put themselves in dangerous situations, and that are also capable of not exacerbating the situation. So I was coming out here working with a couple of groups of people and more just sharing my skill sets to kind of enhance their capabilities. And then they asked if it was something I would be interested in getting involved in personally. And had recently helped bury a child of a woman that I was dating for a couple of years. So stars kind of aligned. And
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. She was a beautiful human being, but it wasn't really working out with her mother and I. So when we separated, within about a year or so, she lost her life in a tragic car accident.
Oh.
So it sounded like the best opportunity for me to make a difference is to get away from what I was doing, which was really insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And at the time, I was just focusing more on my teaching and traveling and teaching seminars and very specialized, like rapid defense, deployment of knife and concealed. And you see a lot of MMA and martial arts and all of that kind of stuff.
So you do a lot of like jujitsu and...
I do. I mean, I have credentials in 8 different defense systems and martial arts, and I'm working on my jiu-jitsu black belt right now. I mean, at a certain point, it's like you're rolling with just those high-level guys, and you kind of try to stay away from the new guys because that's where a lot of the injuries happen,
right?
The lack of control. But it's hard because a lot of the countries that we do operations in, even though the community I work with, a lot of them are law enforcement professionals, we don't have the same rights in those countries that we have here. So we're going in with minimal tools, and it has to be about having other problem-solving skills and learning how to see threats and identify them and mitigate them early on, rather than relying on being reactionary with like the traditional Batman belt.
Gotcha. So how did you two get involved?
Well, I saw an advertisement from Todd Nielsen. He's the owner of Nielsen Training and Consulting. He was former SWAT from San Jose, and he has a lot of incredible knowledge about all that stuff. But I thought he was just teaching Kali, and I learned some Kali from a friend of mine, Dustin Hinson, and I did train with Felix Valencia a little bit, and so I showed up to a seminar, and I brought 3 women with me, and as I was listening to him talk, and he was given a bit of a lecture before we started, I was basically jumping out of my chair. I was so excited because he probably thought I was insane, like seeing this girl just because he's the only teacher I've ever seen teach the concepts and principles, the overlay, the philosophy of why you're here.
Right.
And I've never heard anyone do that other than my mentor, John Farnham. And he's 80 years old now. And he's like in his 54th or 55th year of law enforcement. He's still serving.
Still going.
Yeah. Expert witness, testified in over 500 cases. He's a former Vietnam vet. I mean, he's an incredible man. And I was kind of freaking out listening to him talk because I've never heard anyone else teach like John. And I teach those concepts too, but
Not in the same way.
I'm not him.
No. Okay.
John doesn't know all the blade, but John always said, you need to learn short stick and blade. And so I took his book to Patrick, and I was like, you got to read this. This is the older version of you. And so my family loves him so much. He's been such a wonderful mentor to my son. Like, there's things I can't teach my son. I can show him, do the best I can to show him what a good woman looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't teach him how to be a man, a good man, who's formidable. And
Right.
I can say these things all day, but really you need an outside person that he can go to and mentor him. And what a great example of a good man. And my son just adores him, and he's made him so strong. I mean, he was demonstrating on my son, a week ago, and he was just whomping the crap out of him. And everyone's going, ooh, ah, and he's just taking it like.
Yeah, it's a tough kid.
But, and he's helped my husband. He's helped me a lot. I mean, I don't generally ask for help, but I kind of got my heart broken here not too long ago, and it spun me into a hypomanic episode. And I was just telling him, like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Things are fine. He's like, Mallory, that is a cry for help. And he just zoomed over, and he helped me out a lot, and he's still helping me, train me for all my health problems. And it's just amazing what he does. I was actually scared when I was training with him when you were teaching in West Valley. I was scared to do the conditioning, and that's just where you're hitting. Well, you can explain it better than me, but doing that actually.
Is it pads, like hitting pads?
No, but basically I have, because of my carpal tunnel tendonitis, I have plantar fasciitis. Like you said before, I'm a shit show. And I got a hernia and all this stuff, and he's got help for all of that. But it actually made the pain lessen, which is crazy. And you can discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a position where you have a bunch of theory, we'll call it, say you've learned to jab, cross, hook, uppercut, you've got some kicks, you got some deception, you know how to be effective. That's great if you get the opportunity to act first. But you might have to take some damage to give some damage.
Right.
And to be honest, it doesn't really feel good to hit another person. It still hurts you, but it should hurt them more.
Right.
So one of the art forms that I teach is called Master Defense System, and there's a major emphasis on body conditioning. And that's about just preparing your body for the discomfort that you're going to endure if you get into a violent altercation. So I do consider that the cost of taking the class. We spend 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of every class doing conditioning and learning what it feels like to kick another individual and to be kicked. But no shin pads, no boxing gloves, none of that stuff. And we actually do it in a controlled fashion where you're building your partner up and you communicate with each other. And you'd be surprised, within about 4 to 6 weeks, people, they're chiseled out of wood because they've familiarized themselves with that discomfort in a controlled environment, and they can build and stack upon it. And I have people that have never been hit, never hit anybody, and they come in, especially around here. In LA, it was a little less common, but I think violence is a little bit more of the flavor of the day in bigger cities.
Right.
So fortunately out here, people tend to be rather sheltered, and protected.
Right.
So I feel like that gives them an eye-opening experience, and then right away we separate who's serious about moving forward with, from the tourists that are just there to do something that feels good, that they
Right.
can talk to their friends about. So you can find martial arts in any Smith's parking lot, you know.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen a guy hit a girl, and then I about lost my shit.
Oh, yeah.
I was at a Burger King getting food, watching this from afar, and watched this guy just push this girl down and then reach back, and I like zoomed over there. I didn't even get my food. I had to hop out, you know, said some choice words to him,
Yeah.
and he just like, hey, walked away.
That's what
He's
it
a
really
coward.
takes.
Mhm.
It takes men that are willing to put themselves in dangerous situations.
I just don't. For me personally, I don't like bullying. Bullying is like the one thing, and she's known me forever. I've always been this way, really laid back, monotone, you know, easygoing. But you want to really trigger me, start bullying someone.
Yeah, I always say that too. I'm really nice until I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
But I don't have any training, so you know, I have to. I do the typical Utah thing. I have to get all big, you know.
yeah, well, that's a big deterrent. You know, generally people that are picking on people that are weaker than them, they're not looking for a fight.
Right.
You know, so when they meet some opposition and they see that commitment, oftentimes what you have is a coward in disguise.
Right.
So
So, doing what you do with, you know, saving children, where is the, like, in the entire world, where is the root problem coming from? I know it's a giant question to ask.
well, unfortunately, we aren't really able to effectively work domestically. So most of the work that I'm doing is in Central South America. As far as our organization, you know, when I say I mean generally like the royal we.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of an amazing team of individuals who have been doing this longer than me. I'm kind of the new kid on the block, but with their support, we are able to work in coordination with these governments and their intelligence agencies and juvenile justice and local prosecutors and even the attorney general. So I think first by acknowledging there's a problem. You know, there's a lot of embarrassment, I think, that goes with acknowledging that children are being trafficked here in the United States every day. And considering we have some of the most beautiful national parks here in Utah, it doesn't exactly look good on the face of tourism to acknowledge that the 15 freeway here is one of the biggest trafficking routes in the western part of the country.
So, from an outsider perspective, when I see, you know, I like to call it the political theater that's on all the major news channels.
Right.
You know, they talk about like the Arizona border being open. And then you talk about like all the, you know, everything that went down in 2020 with like Maricopa County, you know, like you can put these dots together. This isn't a hard thing to paint.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I have my own political beliefs that I'm entitled to as an individual, but, you know, when I'm doing these types of engagements, I really try to find a common ground that we can all come together on, right? I mean, obviously our open border situation is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If border situations weren't an issue, we wouldn't be giving $200 billion to Ukraine for them to enforce their northern border.
Right.
But yet $5 billion would have closed ours, and we haven't done it.
Right.
And if anything, all of the fencing, all of the panels, everything that was built and designed by our former administration.
Is now up for auction.
Right, yeah, being sold as scrap metal.
That's so disgusting, though.
It's because they're literally trying to unravel everything. I can't help but believe there are forces that be that are larger than our politicians that don't want to see us unified as a country.
Right.
They don't want to see us unified as a people. And the more divided we are, the easier we are to manipulate.
Right.
So, you know, without getting too deep into the red and blue conversation, I would like to think that there's one thing that all decent people could agree on is that we should be protecting our children. And not just from the trafficking aspect, but with that open border, we have massive amounts of fentanyl coming across,
Right.
being disguised as an array of pills. They're putting fentanyl into cocaine, they're putting it into ecstasy, they're putting it into the heroin. So not only do we have like children vanishing at record rates, but we have overdoses happening to children that have never even done drugs before, and the first time they try something, they're getting hot pills and they're overdosing. So, you know, it's like all politics aside, all immigration policies aside, we need to be protecting our children. And unfortunately, the same The exact same criminal organizations that we're running into in South America are now establishing prostitution rings here in Utah.
Wow.
I teach several officers from various departments, and from as far south as Harriman to as far north as Ogden that I know of and can confirm, there are prostitution rings that are being busted by these criminal organizations, and they are, they're setting up in Colorado, New Jersey, Georgia, pretty much anybody who's welcoming these refugees, if you could call them that. I think that they're criminals. They're coming across our borders illegally. And this is coming from a man who has looked into dual citizenship for the European Union. I wanted Belgian citizenship for years, and I looked into everything required to do that. And me, even as a functioning, employed American, there's policies and there's procedures to do this. So it's not that we aren't still the land of opportunity, but there's a legal way to come here and do that. And
Right.
And it's just not fair to even those families that did take that route and that are here and are contributing to our society to have to watch people come across and take advantage and take jobs from them, take jobs from our native citizens. It's really a sad state of affairs. So, and then you see like our governor here, first of all, he's a disgrace. But at the same time, he's literally...
He's probably bought and paid for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a tool for George Soros. He works for the Global Economic Forum, the World Economic Forum. He wants to make Draper the first 15-minute city, and he's denied it numerous times on camera. And then he's been caught in meetings talking about it. He loves to play stupid. And part of me wonders how much of it's an act.
And that's where the old Draper prison was at, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
They want to make that the first 15-minute city.
I actually saw, I wouldn't call it blueprints, but more like a mock-up of what that would look like. And it's just like...
And to the ignorant, it sounds convenient.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, let's face it, who wants to sit in traffic? I've watched the traffic here grow over the 7 years I've been here.
Shit, 7 years. Her and I have been here our entire lives. When we were kids, I remember you could get from like West Jordan to Sandy in 5 or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a half hour at least. And people who like watch this are going to laugh like, oh, that's nothing,
Well, I'm from LA.
Go down to LA, hit the I-5, or the 405 and, and it's like, yeah, but what you don't realize is, with how the city's constructed now, in my, previous job, I used to drive from South Salt Lake down to Draper.
Right.
And it was 45 minutes.
Well, that's
rush
what I'm
hour.
saying. It sounds appealing to the ignorant that don't see that it's a method of control.
Right.
So, I mean, the full model of these 15-minute cities is to truly limit how much you can use your vehicle, to limit you to only having those options. I mean, what if you have an amazing family member and you want to support their business and that's where you want to get your haircut?
Right.
You have a right to drive 20 minutes away to get your haircut. And you have a right to truly vote with your dollar.
Right.
That's where your contribution is.
I know me personally, when someone tells me I need to do something, I always want to do the opposite. Just be like,
No, I've said the same thing before. I really love Butterfinger ice cream, but the minute you tell me I have to eat it, it changes the taste in my mouth.
100%.
So,
Yeah, 100%.
I believe they're also trying to do a 15-minute city in Vineyard.
Are they?
Yeah.
So describe exactly what a 15-minute city is.
the dynamic behind it is that you're supposed to have everything that you would need for basic consumption and citizenship within a 15-minute distance.
Okay.
So, that makes everything virtually within walking distance, and they want to have you have less access to travel. And that's one of our most basic American rights, is a right to travel freely.
So this is just another form of dividing
And limiting, and it all goes back to the World Economic Forum plan of you will own nothing and you will like it. This is why you have the biggest construction companies and banking companies swooping up over 40% of all real estate across our country right now, because they don't want the average person to be able to afford or purchase a home. They want everybody to be on the rental model. So there are a lot of things that involve this 15-minute city plan that really are not in the best interest of our citizens.
So, do we have a 15-minute city in the United States right now?
I believe Draper is set to be the first.
Yeah, like Utah's the pilot program for the rest of the country, but they already have 15-minute cities in Europe, and the citizens have been rebelling against that. But basically, like you can travel outside of your 15-minute city like 100 times, say that, which they always set the number higher when they first start it.
And then they roll it back.
Exactly. And then you need a permit for anything outside of there. And they have cameras that keep track of when you enter and leave your 15-minute city. And it's not even like you could drive straight from A to B. They want you to drive outside the circle. Say this circle is your 15-minute city. You drive outside of it, go all the way around to go where you want to go. But, and they're actually, I've seen videos of people ripping out those cameras and filling those holes full of concrete. And my husband does concrete. And it's like, if they ever do that here, we're going to have a date night, concrete date night.
Or what they're doing now in certain countries is they're restricting your travel based off of the end number on your license plate to odd or even days of the month.
So they do that in Mexico currently, right?
Yeah.
Yep. You have like I don't know if it's a color system or if it's the license plate deal, but I know you can only travel on certain days. And they tell you it's to prevent traffic and pollution and everything else, but
Climate change.
yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of agendas that are surrounding all of this. Like I've been in various states or countries in the European Union, and I'm starting to see it now in the States where your apartment complexes, even if you look downtown, I was seeing them in Bountiful, where you have these high-rise apartment complexes that are 7 to 8 stories tall, and the whole bottom layer, it's going to be a laundromat, a hair salon, a little convenience store, maybe a bookstore, but they are trying to make everything that you need within a walking distance proximity.
All brought to you by BlackRock.
Yeah, Vanguard,
And
State
Vanguard.
Street.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then when you look at who gets lobbied for by these organizations, it's literally like a NASCAR advertisement. So these people are not working in the best interest of the people. They want to keep that money coming in to their campaigns. So, and they make promises to get into office.
Right.
And fulfilling those is basically selling out their public that voted for them. So,
Do you feel, though, that the incoming administration is trying to stop this?
well, I feel that they're not embracing it near as much as the former. And I think there's something to be said about a person who goes into office and comes out poorer than he went in.
Right.
Versus if you look at a lot of the past, everybody is going into a position where the amount of money that you make as even a president, continues to be paid for the rest of your life. And it also is relatively modest when you start seeing what CEOs make of Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
But at the same time, it's these under-the-table, underhanded deals. Like, for instance, Pelosi. She's known for being an inside trader. They literally have an app called Pelosi's Trades where you can follow every investment that she's making, and rapid changes are being made 24 hours before policies are being set.
So that's funny you say that, because in the world that I live in with doing this, I have to figure out what the trends are and everything. So I do a ton of like social media scrolling, and I saw that commercial come up and I was like, holy shit.
It's quite brilliant.
I was like, oh my God, like, does this actually work? And then, of course there's like people with testimonies because they try to get you to sign up for it. But I was like, wow, if I had the money, I would just do this just to see what happens. Because that lady and her husband have made more money screwing this company over or country over than most people that I can, think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And that's the people you see. It's not even the people you don't see. And those guys, those people are even worse.
Well, Gavin Newsom's her nephew. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, that's the problem, is that this is so deeply rooted that it's becoming a generational issue. And people are so ignorant, they just keep voting for these people and allowing them to stay in power. And they're voting against their own personal interests. So, and it really does surround the identity politics, sadly, And if we take it a step back further, it has to do with the lack of critical thinking in our public schooling system. And that was all instilled by the Rockefellers, Carnegies, Rothschilds, because they want the perfect consumer. They want 2 taxable incomes. Like even the women's suffrage movement, Could be followed all the way back to wanting 2 taxable incomes and wanting to be able to indoctrinate our children.
Right.
So the sad part is this is not random. It's literally by design.
So historically, when do you think a lot of this started? I kind of have my own little theory I'll share, but...
Well, sadly enough, it happened around the development of the assembly line.
Okay.
Though it was an amazing creation for production and for our industry,
Right.
you had craftsmen before that. For instance, I'll give this example. It's very basic. And if a person made furniture, they made that chair from scratch, and they got the feeling of accomplishment of creating something from start to finish. And you had a true craftsman that knew how to do every part of that job. And then when the assembly line came, for that person to be able to keep up with the economy and industry, they now had to go to work for somebody else who could outdo their production,
Right.
and can also provide a product for a cheaper price. So now that man, instead of making that chair, he puts the front right leg on a chair that moves in front of him on a conveyor belt, and then all he does is put the front right leg on chairs all day long. And to a true craftsman, there was nothing about that was satisfying.
Right.
There was nothing that inspired ambition, drive. It was the dream killer. So now you have people that had to literally be dumbed down and have their critical thinking skills stripped away so that you could make the perfect worker, so that you could make the perfect consumer. Prior to the assembly line, we had the traditional schoolhouse,
Right.
where you would have children of all ages. Through that, you would learn grammar, you'd learn logic, you'd rhetoric, the argumentative speech, how to prove your points, how to test theories and ideas against each other through argumentative speech. And this is the Socratic method. This was how we learned for years. This is what created the Renaissance masters, because they learned the liberal arts after grammar, logic, and rhetoric. They call them the liberal arts because they brought freedom, through artistic expression, through astronomy, through mathematics. These were the liberating arts. And if you had grammar, logic, and rhetoric, you could deduce and you could truly sift through the noise and find the signal.
Right.
And we have what we call the Prussian education system here, which came out of Germany. And this was instilled to try to limit who gets critical thinking. This is why if you check every one of our major politicians that is influential and is benefiting from their political position, they all generally come from about the same 10 or 12 schools.
Yep. It's all the Ivy League and...
Yes.
Yep.
And it's generational because they know that by putting them there, they're getting these tools where the general public is not. So through grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and this is coming from somebody who went through the public schooling system. Fortunately, I had an extremely high IQ early on and was encouraged by my parents to utilize that and grow it. But, I could do high school in my sleep. And at the same time, I was able to re-educate myself throughout my 20s and 30s with an Oxford-level education, not by going to Oxford University, but by accessing the lost tools of learning through grammar,
Right.
logic, and rhetoric. And through that, now I have critical thinking skills where I can evaluate and ask questions and really get down to the root of things and try to learn the history behind what we have nowadays. So I feel like by design, it's a matter of dumbing down the public. And when I think about that, I remember being a kid and thinking of like medieval times and how there's a king and a queen, but you have this you have your bourgeoisie and then you have your peasantry and your commons, and how can there be so many of them and then be ruled by this few?
Right.
Why isn't there an uprising? Why, and now I see it every day. It's just...
I was going to say, France was great at uprising. They just took your head off.
Even our forefathers had sayings that, that from time to time, the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants, right? So, unfortunately, they did a very good job at trying to set us some guidelines to run our country by, but these con artists that we vote in as politicians have gotten better at side skirting and, I mean, think about it. Like, you don't need a 1,500-page
Right.
bill
I was just going to bring that up.
to talk about, some border policy or to talk about, something to do with our education. And they do this to hide things within it. And they'll submit the policy out to everybody the night before they're supposed to vote on it. And give you no time to even absorb the information that they're trying to occult from you.
But like, to me, it's like, who writes this crap? I thought it was amazing how, if you take that particular situation, they come out this 1,500-page monstrosity. Elon and Vivek are like, no. And then Hillary gets on, don't listen to Elon. Like, he's not even in the government. It's like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, who is Hillary?
You're gone. Like, you are such an afterthought. Yeah. Like, you peaked and you got your ass beat in 2016.
Yeah, and Hillary started her career by representing a known rapist and getting him off of a case. So it's like, and she was like literally nothing. Like, if her husband wouldn't have got into the presidency.
Right.
And he's just another Rhodes Scholar. If you look back before World Economic Forum, Council of Foreign Relations, you see the Cecil Rhodes Roundtable. This is based off of Rhodesia. Cecil Rhodes went to Africa and declared an area, Rhodesia, because it's where the diamonds were.
Right.
And all of that money became his empire afterward. And that's where the World Economic Forum, Council of Foreign Relations, all of this stuff is from the Cecil Rhodes Roundtable. And they're who started the Rhodes Scholars. Bill Clinton's a Rhodes Scholar. He's amazing at grammar, logic, and rhetoric. That's how he was able to talk his way out of his adultery and his affairs while he was in office.
But then you probably have, wasn't Obama a Rhodes Scholar too? Another person who's great at speaking.
Do yourself a favor. Look up how many Rhodes Scholars have been in our administrations.
Okay, I will.
I think that it will fascinate you because the moment that you take money from the Cecil Rhodes Roundtable and you become a Rhodes Scholar,
they own you.
You're bought and paid for.
Yeah.
And Obama legalized propaganda.
He did.
Yes.
That's how we started the diversion and the separation and all that.
How interesting. Why is that beneficial for us?
Yeah, it's actually such a disservice. I mean, when you really start looking into who owns all of the media companies, this is why independent media is so important.
This is why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, you're a freedom fighter in your own right.
Yeah.
We were just, I was actually talking to Lee last night, and him and I always have these, we'll record something or we'll come here and we'll do like our meetings and stuff. And then him and I will stay back and we'll talk, a good 2 hours on the direction we want to go with things. And one of the things is I call it the Dana White. And I heard this on a Theo Vaughn podcast. It was the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But, Dana, they were talking about like sponsors and everything, and Peloton was sponsoring Theo. And Theo had RFK on his show, and him and RFK are great friends. And the CEO for Peloton reached out to him and said, you need to pull that down. And he did. And Dana's like, hold on a minute. He's like, why the hell did you pull that down? And he's like, well, I got sponsored from him. He goes, no. Let me explain something to you real quick. Mm-hmm. This is your show. This is your voice. You get to say what you want. Mm-hmm. Like, you're popular enough now where it doesn't matter. And
somebody else will step up.
That's right.
Right. If you're going to allow a company to come in, throw a bunch of money at you, and then tell you what you can and can't say, he's like, they're taking away your voice. He goes, hold on 1 minute. He pulls his phone out and he calls this guy, because they were doing it live at their Vegas training center. And he gets his main facility guy on the phone. He goes, how many Pelotons do we have? He's like, I think we have 2 or 3. He goes, fucking throw them in the trash. He's like, serious? And I was like, yeah, you already got the other replacements for the other company, right? He's like, yep. He goes, throw them in the trash. And Theo's like, holy shit. And he goes, let me explain something to you. Do not let these companies tell you what you can and can't say. When they give you sponsorship dollars, they are buying into whatever it is that is going to come out of your mouth. And I took that in, like, I remember, like, I'm getting chills just telling you guys this, but I remember hearing that and, us doing this podcast, and I was like, you know what? Holy shit, that dude is right. I will never in a million years take a sponsor on and allow them to tell me what I can and cannot say.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why, John Farnham, he doesn't sponsor, he's very careful. He's like, I don't want to hurt any feelings and leave anybody out, but he can talk freely about his opinions. And I think actually there was only one company he finally was good, but they know full well they will never try to control what he says. And he got kicked off Facebook, by the way.
Yeah, there's something to be said about being your own man. So
I fully expect at some point to be kicked off platforms.
Oh.
I knew that going into this.
that's how you know when you're making it.
Yeah, it's called over the target.
Fine.
Yeah.
We'll find another way to win.
There's always another way.
Yep.
Like Rumble, as far as I know, is
They're doing great.
Yeah.
Off the fact that they're willing to give a voice to anyone that the Zuckerbergs of the world want to shut down.
By the way, Jaden, I need you to do your research on Rumble. We need to start that channel.
We could do that.
Okay.
Well, and the only thing the Rumble needs to fix is their search. It's very difficult to search things up. Like YouTube has that wonderfully, but it's so hard to search for specific things on Rumble.
I actually paid for a thing, and you guys may know what it is. You know what SEO is?
Yeah.
So
Optimization.
Search engine optimization. So I paid a third party person to go in and beef up our channel. So if you actually type in our podcast name, it's not buried. It's actually at the top now.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, eventually, once you have a good following, you'll get your organic searches.
Right.
But in the beginning, you can, like I said, you get lost in the static.
You do.
You need your signal to be heard. And, if you don't mind, I'd love to give a shout out to a very valuable educational resource that it's a bunch of former whistleblowers that were involved in various aspects of government, and they started their own educational podcast. It's where I was able to really get the history of our modern state.
Okay.
It's called Peace Revolution, and their current podcast is called Grand Theft World, and it talks about everything that's going on nowadays, but not from a position of identity politics. Because let's face it, there are issues that need to be addressed on both sides. But the Peace Revolution was their first project, and there are 96 podcasts that date back. And I started this in 2011 or 12, and I was driving to my Grandmaster in Long Beach, a 2-hour drive each way from where I lived, twice a week. And I was just rocking out, and one of my clients at my business came in and was like, man, you're a pretty smart guy. I think you'd really enjoy this. That's where I learned about the lost tools of learning, and I started pulling in material and re-educating myself. But Peace Revolution has an amazing platform that's set up that basically just gives you an uncurated view of the history of our modern world. And through that, you start to learn about the agendas that are behind many of the things that we just accept as status quo. So I think for the average person that can't even afford the time or obviously the resources to educate themselves at one of those Ivy League schools, this gives you not just a candle, but a pretty bright flashlight in an otherwise dark world. So I've recommended it to numerous educators, people that pre-COVID started pulling their children out of the public schooling system and homeschooling them. So I can't say enough about how COVID backfired to the powers that be, because so many people were like, screw this. I am not masking my child and not allowing them to truly learn. And it was so radical, the policies that were put into place, that it snapped a lot of people's heads on straight and got them forming their own homeschooling organization.
I know from personal experience, I could tell you COVID turned me from a normie to someone who was like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you have that much time to, sit there and like research all the different things, and my brain runs 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yeah. So it's like I have interest in a million different things. So I was able to, put together a pretty good knowledge. And then, I want to say that time activated like my own critical thinking skills. I could tell you from firsthand that public education is a joke, because I actually bought my way out of high school. I did a donation. I took Spanish 1 my sophomore year, and needless to say, me and the teacher didn't get along. And I ended up donating a bunch of random items because she was doing, fundraising for extra credit. And I had the most donations, and I made a deal with her. I said, look, here's the deal. I'll give you all this stuff. Pass me with a B and I'll never show up to your class again. And she's like, done. So I never went back to Spanish 1. Well, I ended up taking Spanish 2 my junior year and had no idea what the hell was going on and ended up getting out. And then going into senior year, they like to sit you down and make sure you're on your path to graduate. And they said, oh, well, you passed Spanish 1, so you can graduate a half year early. I'm all, see ya, gone. Yeah. And then I did what typical people do. And that's, went out and got the student loans and went to school because that's what they tell you need to do. And I now have enough credits in college classes to have damn near a master's degree and no degree to show for it.
Right. No, I understand. I mean, it's something like 15,000 hours of indoctrination you go through by the time you're finished with 12th grade. And I think it takes about 2,000 to 3,000 hours to become fully versed in grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And the rest of it's just indoctrination, So fortunately for me, because I was a high-level wrestler throughout high school, I didn't really care about the social aspect. So starting my sophomore year, I would go on home studies during my off-season semester. I would knock out government, econ, Spanish 1, 2, any of those higher-end classes that I didn't really want to be exposed to the judgment or the perception of the instructor.
Right.
So I would do 7 solids during my off-season, and then I would show up during wrestling season, and I'd work in the student store for my elective, and I'd take wood shop for a fine art, and I would have to go to English because that was the only class you had to take all 4 years. And then my other classes were wrestling for PE. So I would have 4 classes, and every day I'd get to go home at lunch. But during the off-season, I'd double down on all my solids, knock them out at home school. And it's funny because to me, it was like the kids that were homeschooled were kind of a little weird.
Well, there's no social skills.
Right. But to be honest, a lot of those social skills just set you up for failure.
Yeah.
And they screw up your priorities very young on.
Yep.
I can't count how many young people I talk to that are intelligent and they just, they're a little disenfranchised because they don't fit in. And I'm like, I try to convince them. I'm like, I know it seems like this is important right now.
Life after high school is when really life begins.
This
you know what I
is just
mean?
the beginning. You just get through it.
I did I'm not, LDS is the big religion here. I'm not LDS at all. And I did exactly what most LDS people do, which was, shortly after high school, got married. And I tell people all the time because, through my travels and talking with different people, they're like, why did you guys get a divorce? And I just said we grew apart. And that's really what happened. We just grew apart. And I tell people the person I am today couldn't be with that person. Yeah. And I love the person I am today.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with that person. It's just, as an individual, who we are when we're young, if you're still that same person, that's actually quite a scary thought. If I was still the same person I was even last year, I would feel like there's a lack of growth.
Right.
So
I would tell you this, back to, people who went to college and did these things. And Jaden can attest to this because I used to work with Jaden, but this was in my last job. And this is always like what I consider like my crowning achievement at this last company was we did things a lot differently before I got let go. And I don't know what it's like now, but, I built a really great team. We were, and math has always been really easy for me.
Me too.
And so, I was basically teaching industry people that have been with the company for anywhere from 10 to 30 years on how to make money outside of their normal way. And to me, that was like one of the greatest experiences I've ever had, to the point where, again, talking with Lee outside of, recording, and we, one of the things I brought up to him was, when it's time to negotiate certain things, when we start getting the opportunity to do this, I was like, I'll take control of that. And I go, and you'll see a different side of me. You'll see the business side where I'll just flat out, and I learned this from my dad. My dad's like the ultimate negotiator because he just walks in. He's like, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I'm not telling you what Like I use the used car salesman a lot. You know, the first thing, you know, like a used carsman will ask you is, you know, how much do you want your monthly payment to be? Because based on your response is how they're going to screw you. And he goes in and he's just like, I want to test drive that car. And so they'll let him test drive it. And then he'll be like, okay, thanks. And he, you know, the sales guy, you know, you want my business card? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Whatever. Put it in his pocket. And then, he'll call the guy a couple days later, you know. So, you know, you remember me, I went and test drove that car. Oh, yeah. You know, how much do you guys want for that car? Oh, you know, I want 80 grand. I'm not paying you 80. I'll pay you 60, 65. He's like, well, we can't do that. Okay, well, call me. I'm shopping online. I got other, you know, dealerships. And he'll start pinning dealerships against each other. And then within an hour, that sales guy will call. Okay, we'll do it for that much. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude. And then he'll go in and they'll try to sell him all the packages. And he's just like, nope.
The upsell.
Yep. But he'll flat out tell the sales guy, and he treats them all like shit. And I feel bad for these guys. But he'll literally tell them, like, I'm going to show up at 5. I want the car ready to go and the paperwork ready. I'm going to sign everything. I don't want your bullshit. And as a kid, like, you're super embarrassed because you're like, Dad, like, why are you talking to people that way? And then we'd show up at 5, the cars are ready. He'd sign 15 minutes in, gone. And I was like, wow. Like, looking back on that now, I'm like, wow, like, that's how you negotiate.
Yeah, he's a boss. He knew what he wanted, and he wasn't willing to have any type of interference come through.
But I didn't learn that from the school system, you know.
Goodness,
they don't, like, to me, like, high school, for me, like, it should be how to balance your checkbook, sex education for all 3 damn years, and then figure out actually what you're good at, you know, instead of pumping you full of, like, Utah history. No one gives a shit about Utah history.
I just don't want Planned Parenthood involved in sex
No.
education.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
They can.
Do you guys know the history of Planned Parenthood?
It was, what's her name? Margaret something?
Margaret Sanger.
And she was using Planned Parenthood as genocide against the African American
Well,
culture.
and Bill Gates' father.
Yep.
Yeah, Margaret Sanger used to do public speaking at KKK meetings. And she's actually the mother of eugenics. And we actually thought that was a little radical here, believe it or not, but somehow Germany thought it was a great idea and picked it up and ran with it.
I'm sure they did.
So, you know, it's like everybody thinks that it's a public service, which to some it is. Like, you know,
Sure.
Well, now Germany has this deal where they test you really early, and then they just tell you, like, hey, you're good at pushing a broom. That's all you're going to do.
acuity tests.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they push you literally your entire life to do one thing.
yeah, no, it's sad. I mean, really, I try to tell people to open the minds of their children to as many new experiences as they can. You know, the best thing that you could do, even people that are in a state of depression, try something new. You know, do a cooking class this weekend. Then next weekend, you know, go on an organized hike, or, you know, if you can, like, try a scuba diving class. You know, you never know what it's going to be. That the moment that you do it, you're going to feel like a fish in water. You know?
Jaden probably remembers this, but do you remember we were sitting at work and I said we should start a podcast?
It was more, I'm going to start a podcast. Oh, let me join.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like dare to be bold, you know, and like, you know, I did the interview with Jamie last night and I was walking her out and she said, she's like, you know, I might have a, you know, business opportunity to move to Utah and come here. And I said, okay, great. And I go, well, you did photography, right? She goes, yeah. And I said, you should do that again.
Yeah.
She goes, no, the market's saturated with it. I go, hold on. I'm going to share a personal experience with you. When I started telling people we were doing a podcast, people were always like, oh, well, why? There's a million of them out there.
Not me.
Not you, but a lot of people were like, oh, you know, there's a million of them out there. What's going to make you stand out? And I said, okay, listen, just watch and listen.
Right.
You know, and we grew this thing to where it's at now. And, you know, I'm not a big believer in like coincidences, but, you know, if I could share the story about how this all came together, but it literally was, you know, like I knew Lee from a long time ago. Him and I are in the same golfing group. And our buddy Colby was like, You know Colby. He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
he's like, you and Lee should hang out. You both drive a 4Runner and you both like guns. Like you guys are the same.
That's all you need.
And so like we ended up exchanging numbers. This was probably like 6 years ago. Never called each other ever. And then
So male.
I know. And then last year we're golfing again, and Lee's like, yeah, like let's exchange numbers, let's hang out. And I was like, okay. Not even knowing we had a podcast, nothing. And I didn't even know what he would like. I didn't even know what he did for a living at the time. And about a week later, I get a phone call. He's like, hey, do you want to go to a Ute game? And I said, sure. And we came here. And he was waiting to run the lease out here to get rid of this place. And I walked in and I'm like, holy shit, this place has a lot of potential. So we missed the first half of that Utah game talking about how we could record a podcast out of here. And then he started talking about like, well, I want to, you know, like I love film. I want to record. I want to do this. And I'm like, dude, let's do this. And so through the weeks, we started talking, and then we brought Jaden in, and like literally this is how it evolved. And here's the crazy thing. This never would have happened. You wouldn't be here. Jaden wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Had the person he first initially invited to the game didn't get COVID.
Sorry.
Wow.
You want to talk about like happens chance?
Well, remember when I told you they know scientifically there is no such thing as true randomness.
Yeah.
No such thing.
Yeah.
Therefore, there is no such thing as coincidence. And I was so excited for you to start doing this. I was like, I'll be on. What do you want to talk about? I love talking, and you know, and luckily, Patrick likes talking.
You
I
guys-
call him all the time.
You would die if I told you the first 3 things that we were going to film. 2 of them we've never even touched.
That's hilarious.
So we talked about doing the podcast. We talked about recording our golfing trips because we have a bunch of funny ass people. And then we talked about recording pranking people.
Oh.
We've never recorded a golf thing. We've never recorded a prank thing. And I remember Lee telling me like, hey, we're going to get started doing this, and this thing's going to go in a million different directions. We just don't know what they are yet.
Oh.
Next thing you know, we have at the time, the Salt Lake heavyweight champion for MMA. His buddy's on. We ended up getting the Fierce Fighting CEO on. And then next thing you know, we're going to events. They're putting our logo on their shorts. We started recording the commercials. We just did a music video. We're about to start another music video. And then we have a third one in the pipeline, all from just this one little meeting that happened a year ago.
And you know, in a way, you know, this is your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all you care about is the truth. That's you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me. And that's him. That's all we're interested in is the pursuit of truth and speaking truth, swinging the sword of truth. And
I want the truth no matter how bad it is.
that's right.
You know?
Those are the kind of people, that's the kind of people that we are.
Right.
And, you know, I minister to a lot of people. And so does he. And I just watch him minister to people. And just, I mean, I met a woman in the sauna at Vasa after he had to hold my hand and walk me into that room because I looked at it. I looked at it from afar.
You
I was
ruined
like,
her.
I can't go in there. Oh, it's my chapel now. I can do it by myself. He just had to take me once.
I know. Now you're bugging me about it.
Yeah, I know. And so he took me and my son. But I met a woman who's dying of cancer in that sauna. And she's such a beautiful person. And me and him were just working out on our scheduled day, which is Wednesdays. And she came over to say hi to me. And, you know, she just brought up this edema she was struggling with. And what did you tell her?
I just gave her a homemade recipe that'll help with it. You know, it's hard. I mean, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual.
Same.
I believe in serendipity. I think that things happen for a reason. And, you know, when you were talking about the podcast and starting with that, I just share my life experiences with people. And if they help, that's great. If not, then it was worth the breath,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to know that maybe it could make a difference in somebody else's life. But I have never seen magic like the magic of following what you love,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that life is way too short to wake up every day and do something that you hate. And I think that mountains will move if you chase what you love, even if it's not necessarily what society thinks it needs at the time. I mean, there have been a lot of years of struggle for me to get where I'm at, and I don't think I'm fully out of the woods yet. And if anything, the struggles just change.
I think every day is a struggle.
Yeah.
So I was actually talking to Shay on the way here, and I'm like, Shay, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because we recorded the interview with this Jamie lady who has a very, very powerful story. And we got done. I got, escorted her out, and then me and Lee stayed until about midnight to talk. And then I was all amped up on Red Bull because I needed something to give me that kick. Well, I didn't go to bed till 2 or 2:30. Yeah. And then woke up, and I'm just like, holy shit, I am tired. This is going to be so hard. And so that's when I text you. I'm like, are we still on at 1? Because if for whatever reason something canceled, my ass is going back to bed till about 3. Like, no shit. And then I called you, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to get my ass out of bed. It's amazing when you start doing things you love, the natural energy you get. Because as soon as I walk, and I tell Lee this all the time, I get excited to this day to drive down to this studio knowing that I'm about to create something. I don't know what it is. There's times when, we'll do, like Tuesdays we'll do a meeting, and we'll bring in some of the actors we use, and we'll go over scripts and everything. And then we'll get done with like doing whatever we're doing with the script. And then we'll just talk, just regular talk. And some of the ideas that start off as just this little thing in your brain that we're able to put on film and do different things is probably one of the best experiences I've ever experienced in my life.
Well, and that's so my very last class of this year, I was in my hypomanic episode. I wasn't sleeping. I was not okay. You can ask Patrick.
Oh, I know, you were calling me.
I was not okay. And I thought, how in the world am I going to teach this course? But I'm not going to cancel because I made a commitment. Mm-hmm. And I really believe I will fight with my all to be impeccable with my word. But I showed up, and, it was the best class I ever taught. I just go into Farnham mode. Mm-hmm. And that my opening lectures for both day, and that stuff just came to me on the way there, because I always ask God, like, for a class, like, I'll be nauseous every class. But
Do you not like intense. Speaking in front of people?
I've always struggled with speaking in front of people.
Okay.
But John forced me
the fact
to
that
learn how to do that.
The fact that you can do it now and overcome that fear, that's huge, because most people can't do that.
Yeah, it was always my biggest fear. But John forced me to do it because he saw something inside me I had no idea was there. But the material that came to me before I showed up at that class was the best material. Everything just made sense all of a sudden. And so I gave that material that was given to me for this specific group of students. These students. Mm-hmm. Students had, 3 of them had family members die by a gun. And one of them was a 14-year-old boy whose mother took her own life with a gun. And then another one lost her brother to a gun, suicide. And another one lost her family member, her mother, by a gun. That was who she was murdered. And so for these students, that was the best class I ever taught. And I had no idea. I was nervous about it. But,
I'm sure he gets the same feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm in the field, it's
he's amazing.
Sometimes we're up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning undercover. And then you talked about decompression,
mm-hmm.
and it's like we might get dropped off several blocks from where we're staying, have to run a couple counter surveillance routes on the way home, make sure we're not being followed. Then I'm trying to find some street vendor that has something edible in a foreign third world country.
Hoping you don't get diarrhea and die.
Yeah, diphtheria or something,
Don't drink the water, please.
Yeah.
Then, by the time I actually fall asleep, I might get 3 hours of sleep, and then, we're handing off all of our surveillance devices upon getting picked up out of the, our area of operations, and then, 3 hours later, they might want me to debrief with the officers we work with. You're cloudy, you're not there. It's, a lot of time just sitting in a third world hotel room, just waiting for your next call of where we're going. And so, I mean, there's no time to emotionalize anything you're experiencing. There's no time to rationalize your way through it. You just have to flow through what's happening. And then I get home and I collapse for a day and a half, you know, like I feel my own bed and I'm instantly out. So,
I promise you, after tonight, I'll probably go into a coma for 3 days. Just the amount of, you know, thought process that goes into putting things together is unreal. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, you just do what has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But we're fortunate.
Yeah.
You get to do what you
100%.
want, you know.
So remember when I told you that Patrick is the beast from the X-Men?
Mm-hmm.
Like he really has something for everyone. It's a jack of all trades, master of, I can't even say one. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
No,
Yeah,
he's
you
not
can.
he's a master of several. I mean, how many martial arts are you?
I have a master's degree in Kung Fu. I got when I was 33. 8th degree black belt. But then the rest are just, you know, high-level teaching credentials. But to be honest, it's not fair. It sounds like more than it is, because once you have the first one to high levels, and the rest kind of
Fall into place.
much quicker. The learning curve is radically reduced.
Right.
Well, and your work in what company did you work for 10 years that made you so knowledgeable on medicine?
Yeah, I worked with an organic company that worked in somewhat in the medical industry for the cannabis movement, but my thing was to take products that could be adapted or innovated, and created about 80 different products for the market for a company, and I just really wasn't fulfilled. I spent a lot of time in a lab doing rotary evaporation, fractional distillation, all of these.
A lot of chemistry.
Yeah, and I just, every day I'm like looking at the clock and grabbing my gym bag to run out and do what I love. And I had this amazing business partner at the time, and she just told me, she said, you know, Patrick, if you woke up tomorrow and you had all the money in your bank account you'd ever need, what would you do with your life? And I thought about it for a moment. I said, you know, I would just keep learning amazing stuff, and I'd find people that find value in that material, and I'd teach them. And maybe that could make me travel around the world. And she looked at me square in the eyes, and she said, it's moving today. She said, then you need to do that, because you are not happy, and life is too short to do something you don't want to do every day.
Yep.
Unfortunately, you know, she was my business partner. She didn't stand to benefit from giving me this advice. And, you know, her name's Amy. She's one of my best friends still. We don't talk as much as we used to, because we used to work alongside of each other every day. But, you know, I think in some strange way, not that I would have died, but she helped save my life.
Yep.
You know, by giving me a new direction. And, you know, that's why when I say nothing I was doing was significant enough to where I couldn't just walk away from it.
Right.
Not when you compare it to the saving the lives of children. But, so yeah, I just started being more true to myself, and being more honest. But, you know, because of all of that knowledge, I'm still able to pass it on and help people that I meet on a day-to-day basis. And so it's funny. It's like, you know, I know a ton of stuff about microbiology and organic chemistry and
mRNA vaccines.
yeah. And what it is it's all through becoming autodidactic.
Right.
You know, through educating myself and getting myself to the point where my critical thinking, I can literally just go in and buy an old textbook and learn. I don't need some authority figure to tell me how to think.
Right.
And I think that that's what's missing. That's why I really wanted to direct some people to, you know, Peace Revolution, where you could spend a couple thousand hours, fully re-educate yourself, take yourself out of the dark, you know, and it's just these people, they actually have a website called Autonomy, where it teaches you all of these tools to be able to go into business for yourself. And, you know, if you're a tradesman, how to do your books, how to pay your own taxes, how to do everything and not be so reliant on other individuals that are going to dictate the terms of how you do business.
I know personally, I love trying to figure things out for myself. I hate being taught something.
But you would be surprised how many people are so satisfied just being told by an authority what to do.
Right.
You know?
That's society. That's, unfortunately, that's what I like to call the form of slavery that we're in.
Yeah, it's by design. So Frederick Douglass, he's well known as, being one of the first educated slaves, right? And his master, because Frederick Douglass, once he had his education, he wasn't satisfied working on the plantation. And his master said, why don't you go into the town, see if you can find somebody that'll hire you. Maybe the cobbler, or maybe the blacksmith. Somebody will be willing to hire you, and instead of working in the fields, you work for them. But you're still my property. So at the end of the day, you bring me home what you make, and I'll give you what you get to keep. And maybe you'll be happier, because they had developed some rapport, So Frederick Douglass thought he was so lucky, so gracious to have a master who,
Allowed
actually
him to
cared
do
about
that.
his happiness.
Right.
So he went and he found a job, and what he found shortly after is that he would rather know he's a slave and be a slave than try to convince himself that he's free and still be a slave without chains.
Right.
And that's the condition we find ourselves in. But it's through knowing our history that we don't repeat it. That's the sad part.
And we love to repeat history.
Isn't that heavy?
That hurt. Well, and do you know how many super duper alpha men I can call up and discuss gardening and herbs and holistic medicine, which is one of my huge passions.
That's what keeps you even.
It's my sound. I love it. I love making stuff.
But who would have thought, though,
I know.
that back in elementary and middle school,
Stop. I was all boy.
that little Mallory, instead of balling on the basketball court, would have her hands in the dirt learning about Mother Nature.
Smear the queer. God, I love smear the queer. Smash. You got the ball, smash him.
I wonder if they still call it that.
Who cares? I'm calling it. That's what it was called.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Smash the one with the ball. That's what the game was.
Smack her the queer.
Back when people weren't so sensitive.
No, all of us kids, there was all colors, all whatever. All we cared about was having fun.
Yeah.
That's all we cared about.
Out on the playground.
I remember growing up, and if we weren't bagging on each other, then you weren't one of our friends.
No shit.
I live that to this day. Like Jaden can contest this with my old job. I don't know, I don't know the reason why I got let go officially. But what I can tell you is if you take the time I was working there, the shit that came out of my mouth, I should have been fired a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know
what I mean?
I don't know how I'm still employed.
Right. It's the same thing. And then it transfers over to all of our friends. Mm-hmm. I brought up, I have to go to that ugly sweater party tonight. And Colby reaches out, what time? And the guy that's hosting it's like, whenever your mom gets there. I mean, it's like this all the time.
Yeah, but see, when I grew up, the girls were so strange to me. It's like I couldn't understand what was really happening. It seemed like they're being very nice to me, but then it turned out they actually weren't being nice. They were being mean, but I couldn't read the signs that everyone else seems to be able to read. Mm-hmm. But men, the boys, they made perfect sense to me. I could speak their language, and what they did was sports were way funner than walking around gossiping or hopscotch or jump rope. None of that shit made sense to me, but the boys, everything made sense, and I could read them, and if we had a problem, we could fight, and then we were friends again.
Yep.
And it was awesome. I mean, we spent hours copying the dictionary for getting caught playing tackle football instead of two-hand touch. But everything made sense to me with the boys. The girls were so strange. And Sammy, bless her heart, she was the only one. She was really my only girlfriend until Mandy moved in. Mm-hmm. But Sammy, she tolerated me the most. And she always, for my life, just bought me girl stuff. So I'd have it.
Yeah, I could see that. You remember Mike?
Mike who?
Whistler.
Who?
Whistler.
No.
Okay. He was like him and I were like brothers growing up.
Okay.
But like back to your deal where like you could fight and make up. Him and I ended up getting in a fist fight when he first came to West Hills in 7th grade.
And you're best friends afterward.
Well, it took a minute because, the summer came and then, Little League football started. And I made the A team, but I didn't want to play in the A team because I wanted to play. I wanted to play running back, and they had their set. They were set for 5 or 6 years prior to this. So I'm like, no, I want to play. So I ended up going down. So like in Little League football, you have A, B, and C.
Right.
So I went down. So we didn't have enough kids for a B, so it was just A and C. And I don't know why they went directly to C, but I went down to C, and so we're in line stretching, and I'm stretching, and I look up, and what the coaches used to do, because they have to learn your names, is they, on a piece of tape, they'd write your last name, put on the back of your helmet.
Right.
And I look up, and I see Whistler, and I'm just like, motherfucker. God damn it. Did I make the right move? And then his dad was the coach.
Oh, shit.
And then him and I formed a bond. To this day, he's like a brother to me. We may not talk every day. It's kind of like your friend. We may not talk every day, but he can call me, and we'll pick up like that. No problem.
Yep.
And I know if I ever have a problem, he can call me. And if he has a problem, he calls me.
Oh, while we're here, so when Patrick took me and my dad and my friend Mike out to teach us how to work out the awesome workout regimens he has, he told this story about these German Shepherds puppies, and that was really good.
Yeah, it comes through self-soothing. They have all this stop the bullying movement and all of that stuff nowadays, and unfortunately, it doesn't allow children to solve their own problems, and how to integrate their own social structure. And I was listening to this man speak. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he's a behavioral psychologist, but he also used to be a dog trainer. And he was talking about how even with the school shooting situation came up, and he said the problem is that the children aren't learning how to solve their problems when they're young. So by the time that they're big enough, they're dangerous enough to where they can go overboard solving their problems.
Yep.
And if you take a litter of, I think he was talking about Malinois, like the Belgian Malinois. They call it a Malinois. We call it a Malinois. But so he was talking about how you can have 2 puppies from the same litter, and if you raise them together when they're small enough and their bite isn't strong enough and their force isn't strong enough, they'll learn to regulate, and they'll learn what behaviors are acceptable amongst themselves, and they'll self-soothe. And the problem is if you take 2 puppies from the same litter and you separate them at birth, and you raise them in 2 different environments, and then you put them back in the same environment with a resource like food or affection or water or toys or something that they're driven by, and they have no real relationship between them, and they haven't been brought up around other dogs and socialized, then they'll rip each other to pieces, even though they're brothers. And it's kind of a reflection of what's going on. Nowadays, you have so many people intervening in just letting 2 kids work it out. Like I can't count how many times I just got a sideways feeling from somebody. And we met after school, beat the crap out of each other. Next thing you know, we're all getting along, but we definitely figured out who was the alpha and who wasn't. And sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't.
Right.
But the bottom line is we all knew where we stood, and but I think that through like that razzing or that, that socializing that takes place, that's where you really develop solid relationships, because somebody's not going to get offended and then never want to talk to somebody again.
Right.
I can't count how many times we've had situations where it's like, yeah, I don't even know. I don't really hang out with her anymore. I don't know what it is. Maybe I said something that offended her and I didn't even know it. We were having this conversation the other day, and, but my friends, we get together to go to like About Time or something and watch the UFC fights. It sounds like the beginning of a racist joke. You got a ginger, you got a a white guy and an Asian guy and and a Jewish guy, and
Right.
it's like it sounds like we're going to start with a joke, and we're all jabbing each other. But the bottom line is if somebody else were to hear us and come over and think that they're going to jump in this conversation and say
Right.
something foul about any one of us,
Absolutely
they'd
not.
have all four of us breathing down their
Well,
throat.
that's your pack.
That's right.
That's your pack.
And we are pack animals. We are social creatures. And through that, you learn what everybody's strengths are. Even when it comes to a pack of wolves, one of my instructors taught me this. He goes, Patrick, we're so fortunate to have amazing people from all backgrounds. You're a wrestler, high level. It's like one wolf will chase and run down the prey to tire it. And then another wolf will pick up the lead because he's the best at the takedown. And then another wolf will come in and go for the bite for the kill because he's the best at hitting the neck. And you might have a wolf that was better at one of those jobs, but that day he's injured or he's sick. So he'll be the one delegated to stay home and stay with the females and the pups.
Right.
So it's like there are times where even the alpha has to step down and relinquish that authority or that responsibility because it's just not the best day for him to do the job.
Right.
So establishing this amazing network of individuals who are capable with thick skin that provide a relationship that's not going to weather under the test of time because of an oversensitivity
Right.
or a delicate nature. I think that is lost upon this next generation.
I agree.
They've been too protected.
I would tell you between me, Jaden, and Lee, we don't have egos as far as like who needs to do what.
Yeah. Because you trust each other.
We do. So like Jaden does a lot of the editing for us, and he's damn good at it. That's his lane, and Lee Lee's the producer. He does the camera stuff, and I do a disservice to Lee when he sits behind that desk and he's just hitting a button switching between cameras. But you get that boy on set, like when we were recording that commercial, and he's in his element.
Yeah,
Oh my God, whole other deal. And we had a situation before we finalized like who the actors were. We had one guy that flaked on us, and we're like, okay, we're not going to use him. And he's like, do you want to step in and do this? I've never done acting in my entire life. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. We got to get this going. And so I came in, we did a reading with the other actors. Everything was fine. Well, then another person came in and was like, hey, like I could do this, and he's better at it. And so, Lee's trying to tell me like, well, we like this other guy. And I'm like, Lee, it's fine. I'm good holding the damn light. I just want to be a part of the process.
Right.
I don't need to be the star. I don't need to do this, like my sanctuary is when we sit down here and we get on camera. When we're out filming and Lee's doing his thing, that's his deal. When Jaden gets all the files and we're ready to put it together, that's his deal.
Yeah.
And none of us fight and do, there's no ego, there's no nothing. We know when to step up, we know when to pull back.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, when you have enough good hats on your hat rack, you don't have to be the everything guy.
Nope.
And it's so much more better suited when you have the right guy for the job.
100%.
They say a hammer's a good hammer, but it's a shitty screwdriver.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and so, if it were up to me, I'd call up Trump and say, you need to put him in charge of the school system. And actually, we need support for saving our own kids here because how many children go missing a month in our country?
It's actually an older statistic, but when I first moved here, it was 10,000 children per month. So that comes down to on average around 200 per state per month. But it's
I feel like it's a lot more now.
It's not going to exactly be that. This is before this administration, so open borders run two ways.
Right.
When you figure border states like Texas, California, you start getting down into those where they have much more unrefined policies. You could have as much as double, triple that, right? So, and that's just the ones that are reported.
Right.
Oftentimes it's a known person that's selling these children into their situation. So there are a lot of underreported statistics, I'm sure, that would account for quite a bit more than that.
I can't remember where I saw this. I don't know if it was online in an article or a movie, but it made a lot of sense. You know, people hear like the word cartel. They automatically think of drugs and crime. And if you ask any cartel member what their greatest product is, it's not the drugs, it's not the money, it's the people. It's to be able to traffic people in and out because you can reuse them over and over and over again. With drugs, you get a one-time use.
And it's darker than that even. You know, they'll reuse them over and over and over again until they're psychologically broken, and then they'll chop them up into pieces and
Right.
put them out.
Right.
So, you know, your average person, you can get around $200,000 for on the black market by just piecing out everything down to the square inches of their skin for skin grafts, retinas, you name it.
Organs, all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's all your big stuff, but they use the whole buffalo, so to speak.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. And, you know, where are the 365,000 missing children that we know of that DHS placed? Where are they?
yeah, they completely lost track of them. Homeland is just throwing their hands in the air. There was no real priority. They were just placing them with anyone who would take them.
Yeah.
I would tell you this. I mean, I think between the three of us, we know the government is very inefficient in everything that they do.
Right.
Besides the political theater and the bills that have all the fat and everything that are put into them, I would caution people to look at it more like this. If you can't account for all the money that you were budgeted and you fail your audits over and over and over again, what makes you think that this government can protect your children?
Yeah, well, I don't think they care. I mean, we have a protected class of people who can afford to live a standard of life that our average citizen can't.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like we're asking people to care about policies that don't affect them. You know, they are the outliers. And it's really sad. I mean, I spoke at a candlelight vigil with Phil Lyman and some of my fellow operators and some people from Mom Army. And, you know, they asked us to come out and share some of our field experience with the public. And that's what it was to do, raise awareness about it's 365,000 children that have come across the border and are literally unaccounted for.
Well, I will tell you this. You now have a platform you can come and share your stuff on. You guys can come anytime you want and talk about this, whether it's updates or just shit going on in your life or whatever. You know,
Appreciate that.
For me, I want to hear people's stories, you know, and I've said this from the beginning when we started recording is there's no story I don't want to hear if you're courageous enough to come on and tell that story.
But, you know, and I'm sorry, the United States government this last 4 years has been funding a lot of this. The Red Cross hands out rape kits to these women before they cross the Darien Gap. Have a good rape. They're not handing out machetes. They're not giving them armed escort. Have a good rape because it's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's devastating. I mean, it's also other global governments that are supporting it. That Darien Gap is being funded by the Chinese Communist Party. They're literally paving the way for this immigrant wave to move into our country because they know it destabilizes us. You know, fortunately, I know people in the intelligence community around the world, and they keep me up to date on what's going on. And you basically have like a 4-lane freeway going in across the Darien Gap. Chinese engineers building all the bridges. Yeah, they're literally bridging the gaps and building the roads, and you know, so
They own Panama.
it has to do with policies that, you know, some are out of control, that they're a security risk for our country, you know, and sadly enough, like I said, this is right here. This is not a foreign problem. People say, well, you know, you're talking about South America. Like, what's that have to do with us? And
Has everything to do with us.
absolutely, these are our neighbors, and they're not headed south.
No.
They're headed north. you
They're
know.
not staying put.
And the sad part is now you have known terrorists that are entering in South America, Central America, and they're crossing that open border.
You have the Chinese coming in.
Oh, yeah.
You have
You have Taliban fighters
Yep.
that are like war fighters, fighting age men. When you line up these immigrants and you see them, it's very few women and children. It's fighting age men that are coming across our border. And sadly, we're seeing it all throughout Utah here, and that's why I try to raise awareness. I'll speak at any denomination of church. People can reach out to me. My website is MCC Defense. My email is patrick@mccdefense.com, and I will come and I'll speak to your group of people, and I'll educate them. But if we don't come together as a community, we're going to start seeing some major changes here.
I've told my dad a million times, because he gets really frustrated with DC and all that stuff, and I keep telling him, stop watching Fox News.
Thank you.
Stop. I know you are a Republican. Stop watching Fox News. It's all bullshit. And he's like, well, he's like, in your opinion, what would you do to fix the border crisis? I said, well, you're not going to get all the states to do this, of course, because you got Arizona, who's corrupt, and you have California that everyone knows is corrupt. But I go, activate the National Guard, send the tanks down there, point them right at the border.
It's a federal border. It's not a state's issue. The states have a right to monitor their interstate borders.
Right. And I told him, I'm like, if that doesn't work, and I said, I don't know if they'll be in your lifetime, might be in mine, might not. But I honestly feel the only way that this is going to get fixed is if we do Civil War Part 2.
Yeah, well, the sad part is
I have more hope than that.
I don't.
I do. I'm
won't
dead.
be a long war, because the sad part is there's only one side of it that's actually equipped to fight. Everybody thinks that they want to fight until they see
Until they're
what it's
ready.
like to see
Yeah.
their fellow man bleeding right next
Right.
to them, right? So, and let's face it, there aren't a lot of veterans on the other side of this. Once the good people get sick of this shit and they start fighting back, it won't be a long fight. So
I'm hoping that sooner rather than later.
Well,
I'm really hoping for some changes if Trump can make it to the inauguration. It's just we've had three assassination
Yeah.
attempts already.
Yeah.
And it's like, we know more about this Luigi Mangione guy in a week than we knew.
Then the shooter that shot half his ear off.
Right. So, this is something where we're going to keep seeing clouded perception for another couple of weeks here. I only hope that this new administration of converted Democrats is, it's going to give us hope, because when you look at all the people that are standing behind Trump, and here's the thing, Trump, by no means am I like a massive Trump advocate, but he's the best choice we have right now. And he's putting people in his cabinet and administration that are dedicated to making a difference. You mentioned RFK. We've got Elon. We've got Cash. We've got Tulsi.
I love Cash
And
Patel.
this is just like the beginning.
Right.
And I can't help but think that he's learned from his prior term.
I think
'cause he made some mistakes.
Well, I think honestly, when you look at, I would just, here's my thoughts on this, is if you're able to turn a person like Tulsi Gabbard blue to red, and she went from bashing the living shit out of the guy to being in his cabinet. If you're able to make that switch, you have a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
But why did she make the switch? She was persecuted.
Yeah.
how about that?
Yeah.
Where you stand often depends on where you sit.
Well, I tell people all the time with the, and I'm not Republican or Democrat. I am libertarian. That's what I identify as. And I tell people all the time, if you look at the Democrat Party, it is a dog-eat-dog world. Mm-hmm. They have their hierarchy, and right now, the top of their hierarchy is the transgender deal.
Yeah, but they'll eat their own.
They do.
Yeah,
It's just what they do.
Look, I'm not impressed with the Republican Party either. I mean,
Right.
I was a delegate this year, and there's only, I like Trent Staggs. I liked Frank Mylar, but the one I truly love is Phil Lyman. He is a man after my own heart.
Yeah, Phil's amazing.
He is amazing, and he's one of us. And so, I watched all of that crap go down.
And I cannot tell you how disappointed I am with the Republican Party in this state.
Well, they're all fake.
They should be ashamed of themselves.
The definition of rhinos.
Yeah.
They should be ashamed. And
Doing
I'm
it to confuse the voters.
Really, what I want to see is I want to see what this Doge does. I want to see them gut this thing, and I want to see people stand by this. Like, you talk about like the Department of Education, gone. IRS, gone. Federal Reserve,
talk dirty to me.
gone.
Talk dirty to me.
Yeah, but the scary part is every time somebody's tried to banish the Federal Reserve,
die.
it leads to an assassination.
They die.
You know?
I think that dates all the way back to the
JFK.
Titanic thing.
JFK,
absolutely.
Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely. You know your history.
I do.
That's nice.
I know a little bit. In fact, when we were talking about that one moment where things changed, I think it's like you had it well
the
before.
19.
Where you're talking about, like the Woods Craftsman deal. To me, I identify when that ship went down, and the important people that were on that ship, and then the people that didn't make it.
board the ship.
Correct. The Rothschilds
tell.
and
J.P. Morgan.
yeah, and then you look at the creation of the Federal Reserve. And the Social Security number, and now we're just property to the United States.
Yeah, Kash Patel was talking the other day about the JFK assassination, and
Oh, that shit's coming out.
oh yeah, but that's the thing, is it's all going to lead back to organizations we have that were formed to mimic the OSS.
CIA,
Yeah,
NSA.
yeah, no, it's all going to come out into the light. We're in the information era.
I would love to see the Patriot Act repealed. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
You remember when Republicans were like, they can
That's the
spy on me all they want. I'm not doing anything wrong.
yeah, until it happens.
Well, and it's an infringement on our constitutional rights.
100%.
See,
Mentioned being a libertarian, I'm a constitutional.
I am a
libertarian.
constitutionalist. I say I was in the Constitution Party, but I realized I had no say. I had nothing, so I had to register as a Republican, so I could do something.
It's the left.
Well, I'm
way.
glad you were delicate. I'm glad you are not afraid to speak up.
I'm vicious.
And I'm super, super thrilled that you were able to come on and fit us into your busy schedule
Thank you.
and talk about everything.
Are we almost done? Because I need to just look.
We're getting close because he's got a thing
Okay.
he's got to go to.
Look,
I got to
I
shift
gotta,
gears.
I gotta
and
evangelize for a second.
I have to shift gears from like a serious podcast to a really funny one. And I don't
Okay.
know how I'm going to do that.
Okay, well, just give me a second. All right.
The mic is yours.
Okay, so in my opinion, the greatest, best Christmas gift you can give your children or your spouse or yourself is a 1-hour session with this man. And, how many people has he humbled that were like, he doesn't have anything to teach me? And then, well,
And then he teaches
they
you.
get humbled, and then they follow him around like a lost little puppy dog. What else do you know? What else is there? Because you think you know it all, do you? And so I don't even. You have so many stories, so many examples. I mean, you trained Angie Martin recently, who's a retired officer. I love the story with Ron, and I love Ron. But, I mean, he's got something for everyone. And the way he works with children, he couldn't get Ron's child. Ron was like, how did you get my child to focus like that?
We all have our blind spots, Like I learn from the people around me every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, but yeah, I feel like if we're not taking steps towards improvement, if I'm not learning, I'm dying. And that's the way I feel. The day I feel like I got it all figured out, you might as well throw some dirt on me because I'm not living life to the fullest.
Right.
So,
Okay, his first hour is a free consult. And then after that, it's $75 for 1 hour. That's nothing. And he doesn't get paid to go into these hellholes with nothing more than his wit and maybe
and a blade.
maybe a fruit knife to save children and that takes what? Like 1/4 of your income every month?
Yeah, it's, I lose several months of income every year.
So, I mean, for being an agnostic,
an agnostic, which I think I'm helping you turn that corner. But for being agnostic, you are one of the best Christians I've ever met in my life, because you actually, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. Don't tell me, show me. He walks the walk. How many people can I say that about? They preach a good sermon all day. And then when they preach when the grass is green. But then when push comes to shove, they cower.
They disappear.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in the trafficking movement, with trying to counter or do anti-trafficking work. They get together once a week and they talk about it. And then they get together next week and they talk about it,
Yeah, that's called a corporation.
And we're out there in the field, hitting the pavement, breaking it up, stirring things up, and we're doing something about it. And we're effectively putting away people for 25 to 35 years. This year we saved 36 children and incarcerated 34 people.
Good.
So, I mean, I wish it were 3,400, and I wish it were 3,600.
Give it time.
Thousands, but
Definitely give it time.
Well, I may not, and I was mad when I was like, I want to save kids, and he's like, we don't let women, go into these places with us. I mean, because look what happened with Tim Ballard. That's a bitch. But, but I can speak. Now, maybe you don't have money to donate to the Children's International Rescue Foundation, his foundation, surf.com, or surf.org. But I have a voice. And God, Jesus told us you can move mountains with just the word. So I have a voice. I can evangelize. I can do a lot of stuff. Even if I don't have money or I'm not allowed to go because they don't let women in the field.
I mean, we have women that are in the medical industry that run support, and they're adjacent, but no different than your special teams in the military. We can't be split on where our attention is. And sadly enough, if we had team members that we had to worry about as being maybe less physically effective or less physically capable, it would divert our attention.
Right.
And it's unnecessary, really, we're able to get in there, effectively do what we do, and get out without unnecessary exposure or risk. So, we have a ton of women that are involved in our organization, just not in field operations.
Right.
So, and the support of people in the community like Mallory, it's invaluable because we never know where the next donation is going to come from.
Right.
It takes us $35,000 to $45,000 per operation because, we need to cover airfare, lodging, food. We have to support our local law enforcement partners. We need surveillance devices. We need to provide some form of support for aftercare, relocation, occupational therapy, substance abuse treatment, sexual abuse therapy. It's endless, and fortunately we're partnered with some other NGOs that help us with aspects of this, but we're fighting a losing battle, but we're not going to stop fighting.
Well, good. Keep up the good fight.
Well, I wanted to machine gun preacher it. When I watched the movie Darfur years ago, and my son was 2 or 3, I was ready to. I'm like, where are my gun bags? Where's my ammo? I'm ready to go there now, and kill those sons of bitches, because I have friends from Sudan, and those are my Jameses, those are my Phillips, my New Marys. I love Sudanese women, I love them. They're some of the best Christians I've ever met in my life. They sing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready. I'm like, I want to go and kill them right now. So when I saw that movie with Gerard Butler, I was like, see, that's what I want to do. But he told me, he's like, you can't take your guns, Mallory.
Well, it's a whole different element. That's the thing is I'm being, kind of encouraged to take over operations in Africa right now. And, we're going in 2 weeks to Zambia to our first ever. We're setting up a counter-trafficking conference where we'll be training the first ever Zambian counter-trafficking team. And, you're seeing more countries dedicate resources and men to, that fighting effort. And, that Ghana now is seeing that effort and wanting to jump on board. So, but I mean, it's a different cultural animal. There, It's more ritual, mutilation and child sacrifice.
They, it seems to me, at least on the African continent, that their lack of respect for life is unreal.
Yeah, it's rather uniform across third world countries. There's just we have a saying that life is cheap.
Yep.
You know, they have an overabundance of population, and it becomes a commodity. So, you know, there are situations where for $2,000-3,000 you go pay a witch doctor, and he'll offer some money to a family. They'll sell one of their children, and you can arrange for a sacrifice commemorated in the birth of your child, or the building of a new building, or, you know, whatever it is,
That's
whatever
terrible.
venture you're engaging in that you want to pad up with some blood ritual. So
That's terrible.
Well, it's when you meet these people. Okay, I've met these people that have been trafficked, that were child soldiers in Congo, that were, you know, they lost their family members in the civil war in Sudan, or, I mean, just, and I know illegal immigrants now, and I see how much they struggle,
Mm-hmm.
and how much these people get taken advantage of. And it's just, it's bullshit. And, you know, and so I hear all these people, they preach from up on high, but they don't actually know anyone who's
They're also
actually
not-
lived these things.
They're also not doing anything.
And they're not doing shit except, no, that's not true. They have their willful blindness on, or they're apathetic, or they're just ignorant as shit. And they, you know, they want to tell me I'm racist, or I'm this, that, or the other, because I want closed borders, and I will fight for my good friends who are illegal here to stay here because they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I love them. They should stay. But the bad ones, you need to get the hell out. Get out, or we'll make you leave.
yeah,
I will.
it's a sad state of affairs. It's not just the evil of bad men, but the indifference of good ones. You know?
Right.
You think of like the opening scene to Boondock Saints, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the people who engage in these evil acts. It's the people who stand by and do nothing when they can make a difference.
Right. Well, where can they find you?
Children's International Rescue Foundation.org is the organization that I work with. That's why I'm here today. You know, if you want to reach out to me personally to have me do some type of a supportive engagement in your community, or as something along these lines, my personal email is patrick@mccdefense.com. You know, it can be found rather easy. MCC Defense is my website. So I have people that have me come out to train their groups. I work with departments and officers and special teams, you know, so I'd love to keep empowering other people. I feel like that's what really makes the difference. So, but as this work, the field work and operations are drawing me away more and more, and I don't know how accessible I'll be personally in the future. That's why I need to try to create more people that are capable.
Okay.
So,
What about you?
I just love him to pieces.
Where can they find you?
Oh, me? It's not, no, it doesn't, I don't, well, I mean,
If you don't want to share, it's fine.
well, my friends made me get, everyone yelled at me at the SHOT Show everywhere. I had this lady from Underwood Ammo. She's like, you need to do social media. She just lectured me. And so I've repented, and I've started an Instagram. And so I'm Shield Maiden Tactical LLC on there. And then Elliot made me a website. So shieldmadentactical.com. I'm on Facebook as O''Mally space Mae, M-A-E, O'Mally Mae. I have a picture of Sarah Connor on there.
Yep.
So I just love her.
You're Utah Sarah Connor.
I grew up with her. Like, I love her. Well, and The Last of the Mohicans movie, I was like 10 or something when that came out, or when I watched that, and I was like, I want a tomahawk, Daddy. Look how useful that is. I need one of those. But no, I mean, I teach people a wonderful curriculum for John Farnham. That's my ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's affordable, but he's the one. Okay, look, you're not going to be around your children when they're at school, when they're with their friends, when they're just walking down the street. You're not going to be with your children all the time. Patrick, give him an hour and he'll make them a wonderful feral little thing. If anyone tries to abduct your child, they will have a chance. And I've never heard anyone talk about making your child a part of the team. But play the games with them, the license plate game,
Right.
the make and model, how many people are helping them develop situational awareness from a young age. So it's integrated deep, those channels in your brain that you form.
Subconscious.
Yeah, so they don't even have to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was amazing at that because he was a former LA County Sheriff's detective and private security specialist. So I thought we were just playing games throughout my whole childhood, but
He was teaching you.
tuning me in.
Nice.
I was lucky, but I share all of that: threat identification, threat potentiality. Just how to elevate situational awareness. Avoidance is obviously the most
Right.
powerful tool, but if not, it's good to have some other answers. So,
Well, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on.
my pleasure.
You can come back anytime you want.
Thank you.
Mallory also has the open, red carpet. She wants to come in as well.
I love you both so much.
I just want to thank you both for taking the time and, recording this. And, we'll turn around and we'll get this out right away. And then we'll share all you guys' social media stuff and try to bring awareness to it.
Sweetheart, I would sleep on this couch and wake up and go straight to preaching
This couch is special.
about saving these kids. I would just wake up and start talking again.
This
I hope someone would
couch
bring me coffee.
is probably the stiffest couch you'll ever sit on.
Okay, fine, this chair. I'll sleep on the floor.
This is an Amazon special. It looked good. It is not comfy.
I
My
preach.
butt's asleep.
Yeah.
I preach everywhere I go. Everywhere we go, I'm like, this is Patrick. This is Patrick. Or, this is his organization. This is his website. I preach everywhere I go with him. And he, if he has a crush on some girl or something, and I'm like, I want to meet her. And he's like, no,
No, not yet.
no. I'm like, come on. I won't be obvious because I'll be like,
Okay.
because I want him to get married and have babies.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, we will end it with that.
Patricks,
Again.
little
Thank
Patricks
you.
and Patricias
you.
running around saving the world.
Oh, goodness.
You need babies.
Okay. Well, thank you both for coming on. We can continue this next time,
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
of course. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
I love you, Sean.
I love you too.
You need babies too.
No, I don't.
Yes, yes.
No, I don't.
Little Sean's and Shauna's saving the world.
No.
Speaking.